Hey, so I wanted to talk a little bit about evap testing and what that means. What does it mean when we get a evap leak on a vehicle? Turns on the check engine light and we get a code. Evap system small leak, evap system large leak. I've noticed it seems to be something that a lot of technicians struggle with, myself included. I have misdiagnosed many an evap leak or an evap system fault because I was in a hurry or I didn't test it correctly. I didn't meet all the conditions to run the test the right way. I wasn't patient enough with the smoke machine to find the leak, whatever the case was. So I want to talk about a couple things here. We're going to talk about this machine that you see here now, which is an old GM tool. You can see the tool number right there. Maybe some of y'all out there still have these machines and they're still working. If they are, take good care of them because they are obsolete now. They're very hard to get parts for. This one, I've had to make some repairs to it just to keep it working. So we're going to talk about the proper way to set this machine up and then use this machine to find a leak. So first thing we're going to look at is our information that the manufacturer gives us for leaks. So you can see right here we got a P0442 and a P0455 on the screen. So 442 is small leak, 455 is large leak. What that means specifically, it means that under different testing conditions it detected a leak. If you see right there where it says circuit system description for P0442, it tells you how it detects a small leak and what it does to detect that, and the same thing for P0455 under circuit system description. So it runs two different tests to determine what size leak we have. Now, either way, if we scroll down and take a look here, no matter what size leak we have, large leak or small leak, I set the machine up the same way, and this is something that gets overlooked a lot. It tells you right here, verify there is no leak in the evap system using the flow meter on that fancy machine, calibrated to 20 thousandths of an inch. Tells you the same thing here. Use a flow meter on the machine calibrated to 20 thousandths of an inch. Sorry, it's the wrong step. Right there. 20 thousandths of an inch. So let's go calibrate our machine and get it set up so we can do this test correctly. Okay. So this machine actually uses nitrogen to push the smoke through the system, but we actually can use the nitrogen to test for a leak first before we go to smoke, which is the proper way to do it. So you see back here, I've got a nitrogen tank right there on the machine. And something that gets overlooked often with this machine is that little sticker right there. It says attention. It says completely unwind the nitrogen smoke supply hose from bracket to optimize the tester's performance. Well, that's just a very fancy way of saying make sure that you completely unwind that blue hose right there. So every smoke machine out there, for the most part, and I have my own smoke machine, my own personal smoke machine, works a little differently than this one, but every one, the hose that you use to inject the smoke into the system, well, these smoke machines are using mineral oil in a tank. That tank is heated. Vapor comes off the mineral oil. That's actually your smoke. And now you can get smoke solution that has fluorescent dye in it to even help you further find the leak, maybe using a black light, which is very helpful. Or you can add your own fluorescent dye to your smoke solution, to your mineral oil, to help you find those leaks. So I'm gonna go ahead and unroll my hose completely here. The reason that we unroll the hose is because the oil, the mineral oil that we use to create the smoke, if the hose is rolled up and we just unroll a couple of feet of it to hook it up to our test port, it's possible that oil gets puddled up in the hose and it creates a blockage and we don't get the proper flow, which could lead to a misdiagnosis. So I'm gonna go ahead and unroll this hose completely. Now, our documentation over there says we must calibrate the machine to a 20 thousandths orifice. So first thing I'm gonna do So I'm gonna go ahead and turn on my nitrogen. And I'm actually getting a little low on nitrogen. I got about 900 PSI in the tank. I should have closer to 2,000 on a full tank. So that's not gonna last me long. Looks like it's time for a refill. Okay, the machine also comes with a set of instructions here for verification and diagnosis. Kind of shows you how to set it up and use everything. But one thing I want to point out is right down here on the bottom of the machine. You got a port for self-test. So if you got one of these older machines around and maybe it hasn't been used in a long time, do a self-test on it first. This will do an internal leak test on the machine, which I recommend because this machine actually did have a leak and we had to repair it to get it up and running again. Obviously you got some ports that they never did use, TBD, to be determined. But right here, there's a 20 thousandths test orifice that's gonna allow me to calibrate my machine. So step number one, hook up your blue hose here. Now we're going to calibrate the machine. So you can see I got a flow meter on the machine right here. And it's got a little red pellet in it right there, and that little pellet is actually stuck right now. So before I actually use my button to power the machine up, I need to get that freed up. So they tell you right here that static buildup in here can cause this to stick, and that's exactly what's happening here. And they tell you to gently tap on the machine to dislodge that pellet. There's no gentle tap here. You gotta get a little aggressive with it. And some of that may be because this machine's so old too. But either way, it's down here at the bottom now. So my next step is to go ahead and, with my valve set to nitrogen, go ahead and power the machine up. And for some reason my machine is not powering up. Well, it looks like I had a poor connection on my power supply, so we got that taken care of. So I got the machine powered up now. Valve set to nitrogen. You can see where my little red pellet is right here. So I'm going to make sure that it's not stuck. Okay, so it looks like this is where we're at, calibrating the machine to a 20 thousandths orifice. So these machines came with a little red arrow that you can move up and down. It's pressed into this little slot here, and they fall out all the time. So just ordered a little magnetic arrow off of Amazon to use for a pointer on this machine. So now that my machine is calibrated to a 20 thousandths orifice, I'm going to go ahead and turn it off. Disconnect my blue hose here from the test port from the calibration orifice. I'm going to take it over to my evap system here. Set it up and see if we actually have a leak. So I've got my evap test hose already set up. I've actually got a kind of an evap system mocked up here using a power supply. Now when you get ready to test your evap system, whether you're testing with nitrogen to test for a leak, or maybe you got a smoke machine like most of us have now, just use shop air to push the smoke and you're smoking the system. Remember, you have to seal your system off. Now a lot of scan tools have that function built into them. It's called evap system seal, or maybe it's called evap system purge and seal. Either way, you have to seal the system off to get a proper smoke test. If the system's not sealed, you could end up with a misdiagnosis. The way to seal the system, you've got an evap canister vent valve. This one's located right in the canister here. Some of them are in line with the canister, in between the canister and the fuel tank. And you have a purge valve that purges the fuel vapors back into the engine. That's this guy right here. So the way they work, to seal the system, that purge valve, when it is powered off, when it is not energized, no power to it, it's closed. your engine control module is going to turn that on to open it to purge vapors back into the engine. The vent valve, completely opposite. When it's turned off, when this guy is turned off, there's no power to it, it's open into a vent mode, okay? So really to seal the system, all I need to do is turn the vent on and close it. Then I should be able to smoke this thing and see where we're at. So I'm gonna go ahead and ignition on. Remember the purge valve is already off here, so it should be closed. Vent solenoid's off. It's actually open, so I need to turn my vent on, power it up. Now the vent solenoid's closed. So I'm gonna come back over here and turn my machine on. Remember, we got this thing calibrated to a 20 thousandths leak. So once I turn it on, you can see that little red pellet in there went all the way up to the top of my scale. So let's make sure it's not stuck. And that's where it stops. So this is my calibration point for a 20 thousandths leak. This is where we stop. So now that this is above this, where I set the machine up to measure off of, that means we have a leak. So I've used the nitrogen to determine that I have a leak in the system. Now it's time to smoke. So just turn your valve from nitrogen to smoke. Give this thing a second. It's going to start heating up that mineral oil in there. And we should start producing smoke here in the next 10 to 15 seconds. So I'm gonna come back over here and we're gonna give this a second, see if we actually have a leak. Maybe we do, maybe we don't. Looks like I got a little bit of a leak from my purge valve there. So I think that really proves everything out, that we do in fact have an evap system leak. It's going to have to be repaired. Just remember, you got to seal your system correctly to find the leak, and you got to set your machine up. Depending on the smoke machine you have, you got to set it up correctly to be able to find that leak also. So just keep that in mind. You know, when you're doing evap testing, sometimes these leaks are not easy to find. And if the system's not set up correctly and the smoke machine's not set up correctly, you may not find it at all. Something else to think about too is, let's say I didn't seal the system correctly and I smoke tested it. And I saw smoke leaking. Let's say I saw smoke leaking from my vent hose. And I just assumed that, hey, I got a bad vent valve. Well, maybe I didn't turn that vent valve on, so it's going to leak. Remember, when it's off, it's open. It's going to vent. So I throw a vent valve in it, clear the codes, go drive it 5, 6, 8 miles. Life's good. I scan my ECM, no codes, everything's, you know, everybody's happy. I cut that vehicle loose. A couple days later, it comes back with that P0442 again. What happened? Well, for the engine control module to run the evap test, to test the evap system to make sure it's not leaking, sometimes that takes a couple of days for all the criteria to be met for that test to run. Okay, me driving at 5 or 6 miles, it's not going to happen. So I'm going to trick myself into thinking that the vehicle's fixed when it's really not. And I'm going to get that back, and I'm going to see it all over again. I'm going to have to start that process over again to really figure out what's wrong with it. So just read all the information you got available to you in, you know, All Data, Mitchell, GM's SI, Ford's Workshop Manual, whatever you're using. Figure out what it takes to run the evap monitor test in the ECM and try to get that to complete, you know, before you cut one loose. Make sure it's fixed. Hope this helps out.